Sometimes I'm an advocate, and sometimes being an advocate requires a little more courage than it sort of comes naturally to me. But I have a little posse in the front row, and for that, I thank them. So I am the founder of the first fashion trade association for people with disabilities. We're brand new. So new, in fact, that what I'm about to tell you is not yet on our website. Our media page reads, "Please feel free to critique us, to praise us, and to put us in our place. But whatever you do, please don't call us inspirational." So why would I say that? Well, contrary to popular belief, people with disabilities do not exist to inspire you. I am a resident of TED Talks, and as such, it's my obligation to have a favorite TED Talk. And for me, there is no other than that of the late, great Stella Young, and it's called "I Am Not Your Inspiration, Thank You Very Much." And in this talk, Stella talks about a concept called inspiration porn. And what it is people with disabilities are not necessarily seen as human, but they're seen as bodies, as objects of inspiration. Or as Stella said, "I cannot tell you the number of times I have been approached by strangers wanting to tell me that I am brave or inspirational. And this was long before I had any sort of public profile. They were just congratulating me for getting up in the morning and remembering my own name." Sorry, nerves. Thank you to my posse. So Stella goes on to say, "When people say you're an inspiration, they mean it as a compliment, and I know why. It's because of the lie. It's because we have all been sold a lie that disability makes you exceptional, and I assure you it doesn't." So yes, I agree. We have exceptional needs. Who doesn't? But I believe the only thing that separates us from them is that people with disabilities do not get beautiful, thoughtful solutions. One example of inspiration porn has cropped up over the last few years. It's a trend. It's exciting at times. It's runway models with disabilities, to which I actually see the need. But I can't help but struggle with the fact that there are few, if any, products made for these models on runways. And it boggles my mind when I look to the way athletes have continually received amazing solutions for their needs. It shows that designers aren't blind to accommodating ability. They opt only to accommodate one side of the bell curve, and that is the heart of my advocacy. I aim to inspire designers to realize there is a totally other side of the bell curve to which they've never touched. So who here is familiar with universal design? So universally designed product is one that would be marketable to people with many abilities. And it sounds great in theory, but I actually have some issues with it. First, universal design was defined in 1997 after 2 decades worth of architectural innovation. And because universal design was developed around large spaces, it stifled the innovation of the small products it aimed to define. It is actually a lot easier to reduce a barrier on a large space like a stage like this than it would be a highlighter or a pair of underwear or a tampon or a shoe, any small product. And when universally designed products don't solve every problem, they're not praised for their innovative value. Instead, they're deemed accessibility failures. But the second point, and the one that's more important to me, is when, in 1997, universal design was defined, they gave it 7 principles. And when you really start to look at those 7 principles, you will realize that there's not one that prioritizes beauty or aesthetic or emotional connection. And this is quite shocking when you realize that design at its core is just form meeting function. We need to be inspired to use the products that we need. So this oversight led me to create a new design field that I call neo-universal design. And there are 3 principles. The first one is you design for the exception. And what that means is, in universal design, it presumes that you can make something for just about everybody. But it also acknowledges that there will always be an exception. So I say you take that exception And number two, you create a beautiful solution for it. And finally, you market it broadly. And what I have found is so long as you aim not to improve the person, but to improve their ability to do what they want, when they want, where they want, your solution will always, always have much broader applications. Universal design was developed through the lens of the environments in which we live. Neo-universal design is developed in and around the products that we use to navigate those environments. And I believe that neo-universal design can work, but only if it's adopted as a business model, not as a CSR halo. This is not charity. So how does that apply to a festival that celebrates diversity and inclusion? I suppose this can best be explained by telling you about my impossible medical diagnosis. On March 30th, 2012, I entered the hospital. And I was struggling to walk, and I had my first ever migraine. Some of the diagnoses doctors first described to me were things such as brain and spine tumors, myasthenia gravis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, dengue fever, you name it. Sorry. And it's interesting because each of these wildly varying diagnoses have been expressed through similar symptoms such as motor weakness and migraines. And that's how I see inspiration. It's not the diagnosis, it's the symptom. Inspiration through the lens of disability is a symptom of a failure to see people with disabilities as human. Inspiration at Inspirefest is a symptom of our fight, of our mutual interest in our own inclusion. It is for us, it is by us, it is community, it is advocacy, it is proof that we have the capability to inspire our very selves. But it goes back to something that Stella said, which is, I'm inspired by the disability community all the time. I'm learning that it's a genius idea to use kitchen tongs as an extra reaching stick. I'm learning that trick where you can charge your mobile phone from your chair battery. We are learning from each other strength and endurance, not against our bodies, but against a world that exceptionalizes and objectifies us. I believe in equality. Neo-universal design can only thrive if people with disabilities are invited to the table of their own design. The IFDC, my organization, believes that the people closest to the problem are those who are most equipped to solve it. I believe in sustainability. I believe in sustainability. You cannot enable the wearer by disabling the sewer, the environment, the retail worker. And lastly, I believe in equality. I believe in evolution. Products made for people with disabilities must evolve. It is actually a matter of life or death. So I come here today to ask you to feel inspired, but also to question, why is it that you feel inspired? If your inspiration dehumanizes the person who moved you, it's a symptom of something both selfish and dangerous. But if that warm goosebump feeling that we all sometimes get is because suddenly you feel understood, that means that you are deserving of the Inclusive Fashion and Design Collective. You are deserving of Inspirefest. I am the Inclusive Fashion and Design Collective, and I know a few things. I know that disability is an $8 trillion emerging market the size of China. I know that falls are the third leading cause of death. I know that assistive devices can eliminate the risk of fall. And I know that failure to use a hearing aid leads to early onset dementia and early death. I know that devices are not adopted due to stigma, and this is what I believe. I believe that products made for people with disabilities are so ugly that it's deadly. And I believe we can inspire retailers to make countless money and save countless lives. We are the Inclusive Fashion and Design Collective. We're going to be debuting in September or February, sort of depends on New York Fashion Week. So our website, inclusivecollective.org, is just a landing page for now, but I ask you to visit, check us out, sign up for our newsletter, say hello, and maybe even give a little bit. We are in the hunt for a sponsor, so if you know of somebody, I'm taking names. And if you felt even just the slightest twinge of inspiration from my talk, I hope you'll give. Thank you.
Want to be in the audience next time? Click here for tickets to Inspirefest 2017.